1.5% of global researchers in STI that are female. And for us in sub-Saharan Africa, where we fall as Kenya, we are very close to that global average at about 32%. The leaders are the Central Asia, who is at about 45. But it was interesting for me to learn that for Europe and North America that we keep benchmarking ourselves against, they are not very far off because they are at about 35%. So we keep wondering why that gap from a population of people that constitute about 50%, why do we have such a small, much smaller percentage in STEM and moving on to become researchers in STI? So that is the conversation we'll be having this morning with these very accomplished ladies. We hope to unravel, find out what's going on. Why is it like that? What have the issues been? Can we understand it? Are there policies and so on? So now allow me to, I hope you have a microphone. Because we need a microphone for the panelists. They will introduce themselves, just give us a little background, the way I've tried to do with myself so that we understand where you're coming from and then we can pick the conversation from there. But you need a microphone. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now I take my seat.
Hello, good morning. I'm Adelaide Salema. I'm working with the National Museum of Tanzania, and I pursued my Bachelor of Science degree at the University of Dar es Salaam, and also Masters of Environmental. And my specialization, when I did my master's degree, is on restoration of mangrove ecosystem. But later on, I moved to butterfly pollinators. Now I'm doing my research in butterfly pollinators. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Phyllis Malaki. I work for the National Museums of Kenya. I have a BSc in Natural Resource Management and a Master's and PhD in Dryland Resource Management. I am also an ornithologist. I do a lot of research in bird-related work. And above all, I'm also a champion for women in STEM and especially enhancing STEM pathways among young women and girls, especially in vulnerable communities. I'm happy to be part of this panel today. Thank
you. Good morning. My name is Anne Marie Ivanko, and I am not on the program because I found out about this conference last week, and I asked very kindly to be allowed to join, and then I was invited also last week to join this panel. I am a fourth-year PhD candidate at the University of Oslo, and I study lichenology. So I'm both a botanist and a mycologist. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity to discuss this topic. We won't have nearly enough time today, but thank you everyone here for having it. And with that, I'll move on.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Fochibe Ekeli from Cameroon. I'm a lecturer with the Catholic University. I'm an early career scientist. So probably I don't have a long list of experience for being in STEM, but I think I'm one of the people that would demonstrate the need for something like mentorship in STEM. So I'm really happy to be part of this panel discussion. Thank you.
Kindly applaud my panelists. So I think I'll start right with you. Since you're still in the early stages, and tell us a little bit about the journey you've had. It's not been too long, that's why I want to start with you. And particularly what motivated you, what inspired you to go into STEM. And as you do that, tell us like one of the greatest challenges that you faced and how you were able to overcome that challenge.
All right. Reflecting on my personal journey, I think one of my greatest inspirations were natural curiosity. I wanted to know more. And I also had a passion for science. I'm an entomologist, by the way. And I think I got inspired during my undergraduate years. I studied zoology, and I had this professor in entomology, and he really painted the scene so beautifully. And it was about nature, and I wanted to really, explore and find out how interconnected we are, with the environment. And for me, it has been a process of continuous learning, exploration, and a deep desire to continually contribute to human advancement and to science as a whole. Yes, there's been a couple of challenges. I think we are talking about women in STEM. I think one of the things I've faced is the lack of mentorship. Yeah, lack of mentorship, especially from the females, from my female colleagues. I've had good mentorship from the men, but from the females, it's always some sort of, I don't know if it's a gender war. Yeah, which is one of the major things I think we're going to talk about here, because oftentimes we talk about women in STEM, women helping each other, women standing for each other, but in certain instances, it's not always the case. So some women become like a standing block before other, especially early career scientists, younger women who are looking forward to, contributing more into the STEM field.
Thank you. I think that's interesting. And Felicita, I'll come right to you, because you did mention that you're a champion for women in STEM, and now Fochibe talks about mentorship. So could you comment on that from your experience as well? What has it been? Did you yourself have mentors that you looked up to that guided you? And what would you say about mentorship as a way of growing the numbers of women in STEM?
Thank you. Yeah, for sure, mentorship is a very, very big issue when it comes to women in STEM, because for one, women are underrepresented in this field. And so for me also, when I was considering a field in STEM, I did not have anybody to look up to. So it was very difficult, but I had to challenge myself with the opportunities that were available for me. I started this passion when I was in high school. I was actually looking up to some professionals that I really liked. I really wanted to be a wildlife ranger because I loved how they dress, I loved the uniform, and then from there, fortunately, when I was going to the university, I was selected for a course that eventually helped me to pursue what I wanted, that is natural resource management. And from there, I was able to get network to institutions. We used to have a club for bird watching, and we invited professionals from Museum and Nature Kenya to come and just help us around with bird identification. And it's from this here that I was even able to connect myself to the museum and eventually got employed here. But along the way, it was very difficult because for a woman, sometimes you have to work extra hard for you to fit in that system. And actually, I think in my department, I was the first female to be employed officially. And I remember one time we had a strategic development workshop for the section. And one of the key things was to discuss how we could increase the number of women in that field, ornithology. But over the years, it's still been very difficult because you are still underrepresented. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. The underrepresentation, of course, reflects on the number of mentors that one can have. But those of us who are there, I believe we really should take extra steps and make deliberate effort. For instance, for me, I have a group of female lecturers, about 10, that I mentor in my university. I started off with them in 2016, and I've walked a journey with them, and I've seen transformation, quite a bit of transformation. And I was telling them last week that I now have another group, a few of the other female, they hear there's this group that is working with Professor Kenya, and they would like to get in. But I've worked such a journey with them that somebody getting into that group would be a little lost. So I felt the best thing to do would be to wean them off and then start another group, but they're still clinging on. So I keep wondering, at what point do you feel confident enough as a female scientist that you feel, of course, mentorship is forever, literally. I still have mentors that I look up to. But then I find this feeling of a very strong need to keep consulting someone. So I think it's our nature as women. We want to do it right. We want to do it so right that sometimes we take a little longer to take a step forward because we want to do it right. But Adelaide, maybe you can jump in at this point, having been in this field for a while, and share some of your experiences, your journey so far, and again, the mentorship seems to be very important. You could also comment on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to share my journey in STEM, and I grew up in a family of 6 children, and I'm the 5th born. 3 brothers and sisters, but all sisters have taken some science subjects, but the brothers have taken some art subjects. But even our father and the mother are also teachers in science subjects. So we have some mentorship while at home. But as we grow up and went to primary schools, I was very much interested with these environmental issues, watching bears, and engaged in wildlife researches. And when I went to universities, also I was very much interested to join some wildlife option courses. But later on, when I joined my first employment at the museum, really I faced some mentorship problems because I found only 2 curators at the museum, and as we speak today, we have only 3 curators at the museum. So you can see how this is difficult for the women to pursue their careers in science if there is no individual efforts to identify some opportunities and know how to go ahead to take some options in the other courses that are related to science and the other subjects.
Okay, thank you, Anne. Would like you to share some of your experiences, your journey so far. Challenges you might have met, are they different, or is it just the same everywhere for women?
So I grew up in the United States, and I moved to Norway first in 2012 with my husband, and then again in 2020 to start a PhD. And I agree with you that the gender gap is the same in other parts of the world, for sure. In my case, I moved to Norway in part because I believe the gender gap is less in Norway than the United States. In Scandinavia, they do try very hard to allow women and men to have the same opportunities, the same pay, the same paternity responsibilities. Like they have amazing childcare options for mothers. If they're working, they get a full year to take care of their children before they have to go back to work, but they're guaranteed their job when they come back. And we don't have that in the United States. Definitely not across all sectors, including STEM.
Yes.
So these issues go very deeper than even science and technology. And when I was thinking about this panel today, what I thought about was that when I came to Kenya last week for the first time, I was warmly welcomed by almost everyone. So thank you for welcoming me. And if we did the same for women in science and technology, I think there would be more women in science and technology.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for bringing up the issue of getting married. And because that's an issue that comes up a lot it husband or boyfriend, even when you're still in the university, or the men in your life, including brothers and fathers, as you step out and begin to show interest in STEM. At my time, it was very prestigious for a woman to go into the sciences, very prestigious. And I was lucky, I had a father who was a teacher, so he was educated, and he could appreciate, he could see a bit of the future and where I might be 50 years from that time. So for me, I got a lot of encouragement, and that has remained. I had a lot of mentors, I had female lecturers who sort of just held my hand all through. But as I started interacting, I realized not everyone had that very enabling environment that I did. So I would like us to shift into that space of work-life balance as we are now with children and everything else that you need to do as a woman. What has it been like for you, Felicita? Tell us. Working in a business institution such as this and have all those many responsibilities that the society also expects you to feel. Tell us what that experience has been.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed, it's not very easy. I'm lucky. I'm not sure if I have supportive environment, but I'm married. I have 3 children. And actually, my last baby, I bore my last baby when I was doing my PhD, and I graduated with a belly. So it's not an easy thing, but it takes a lot of bravery. I mean, braving everything, getting out of your comfort zone, and just embracing all the vulnerabilities that come along with it. It's not very easy because, especially the nature of our work here, every time you're out in the field and you have a husband whom you expect to, be supportive in that way. Sometimes you're not very sure if they're supportive, but sometimes they just have to let us go. Yeah, because we have to fend for the family also. So it's not an easy task. And also staying in an environment where is male-dominated sometimes, there's that aspect of not having the confidence sometimes to get out of that cocoon. And you really try so much to make yourself to be felt in that space, to be visible to the world, and just let yourself be known within that particular space. So it's not an easy thing, but we have to brave all these challenges that come along with it.
Yeah, so yes. What would you be telling the young ladies who are sitting in this audience?
Yeah,
as a way of encouragement?
Yeah, you really need to be bold. You really need to make yourself be visible outside there. Right now, we are embracing a lot of technology. We are all in these spaces, Facebook, Instagram. You take that opportunity to make yourself be known. I was lucky to be part of a training, an online leadership training that involves women in science globally. And we were able to travel to Antarctica for 3 weeks voyage. And through this, in this voyage, I had a lot of experience. And just the key thing was just to make yourself to be known, be visible, be bold, get out of the cocoon, get out of your comfort zone. And yeah, the world needs women in STEM, and STEM also needs women. Yeah, because this is a diverse field, and we need so many diverse brains, diverse views, perspectives, and we need to also to have our place in the table when it comes to decision making. Yeah.
Okay. So now I come to you, Fochibe, as a young early career scientist. What are you thinking of in this space? Because you've seen a few women ahead of you. You've seen the struggles they've gone through. Do you sort of start feeling a little discouraged, or you're still fired up and feeling that you can still do it all?
The aspect of doing it all,
yes.
You know, they often say that you can't eat your cake and have it. Right, but I think for us women, we have to be resilient, pushful. No matter what happens, it depends on what kind of vision you have. Yes. And I think I can take this back to upbringing. In certain homes, women are trained to be wives and mothers. Women are not trained to have careers, to dream, so it gets a bit difficult if you find yourself with someone who thinks that women are not supposed to dream, that you can't have a vision. You ought to submit to a man's vision. I remember having a conversation, it's strange, but it was with one of my lecturers who was married at the time, and she kept advising young girls that, oh, you should marry before you maybe go and do your master's. You should marry before you go and do your master's or maybe a PhD or something. And yeah, and it you know, the way they communicate these things, it's like you're missing out or you're lacking, and yeah, it gets pretty difficult. But I want to just say that if you're a woman and you have a dream, it's okay. It's okay to go for it. It's okay to, you know, stand up. It's okay to tell your own story, because I think what is missing is women's stories. And we can't let other people tell our stories because they're not going to reflect exactly how we want the story to be told. So we need to be bold enough to tell our own stories, and also be bold enough to, you know, go after what we think we are dreaming of. Yeah.
Yeah. So Anne, what has it been like for you in that space, work-life balance?
As soon as I got married, people immediately wanted to know when I would have kids. And I think it's the kind of question people feel more comfortable asking women than men. So I've been asked many times when I'm having kids, and I don't mind being asked the question, but I've been married for 12 years and I still don't have kids. I'm a scientist, and that's very important to me, and I think it's possible to have children and be a scientist.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think that's true for a lot of people in this room, both men and women. But for me, I prioritize my science because it is very hard to do both.
Okay. So what I hear is stay the course, stay focused. Yeah. As long as you know what you want and you have a plan, it should be fine. Yeah. And sometimes I think you can eat your cake and have it. Sometimes. Personally, I think a few times I've eaten my cake and I still had it. It's very hard, but it is possible. And it just goes, I would like to come to you, Adelaide, the work environment. You mentioned that when you started out, there were like 2 or 3 of you. So that work environment, what kind of culture did you find? Despite the few numbers, did the institution, for instance, make any deliberate effort to make you fit in, to make you attain your potential, to make you be, just be who you are and be able to do everything they could see you dream to be? The culture in the work environment, and that is something I would like all of us to share.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Before I come to that working environment, I would like first of all to to appreciate the effort of my government, United Republic of Tanzania, for initiative of ensuring that most of the schools in Tanzania now have some laboratory buildings, and those buildings are well equipped with facilities like apparatus and the other equipment, lab equipments. So I think this is one of the steps towards ensuring that girls in schools are interested in STEMs. But there is a gap somewhere, and this is from a family level to national level. And this, I can categorize this into cultural, socio-economic. So when you come to individual, for example, the individual perception, they perceive that maybe they have no capability of engaging themselves in STEM. So they see that these science subjects are for men, but this is a very wrong perception. But when we come to the working environment, where I found only one curator at the museum, but as I've said before, it needs individual effort. For example, in 2015, I just take my own effort to to publish, to go to the conference and present my first paper on butterfly. And from there, I found a scientist because it's an international conference in Dar es Salaam, in Arusha, Tanzania. So I found some of the scientists also presenting their papers. So through this interaction, we can see how to widen the field of science. And I found Dr. Esther Kioko is my mentor. So, and she's here. So it's a very special lady to me because he came to me and asked, Adelaide, I like your paper, your presentation. So can we come together and write a joint proposal so that we can have a project together? So we come up with a proposal and we develop that proposal, we get fundings. And Esther Kioko is a director, a project director of that project. It's a 3 years project. So I can see that is a very, it needs an individual effort, and those who are behind us, they can see the effort of one who is ahead so that she knows how to pursue the careers and even the field while in the working environment. But there is also some individual perception, as I've said, even at the family levels. When some of the parents advise even their girls in schools not to perform well in their schools because they've no income to take them to higher levels. So those are the factors who hindering the girls, especially while they want to go for higher learning. But also there is also this cultural perceptions that after there is some initiation rites in our culture, and in Tanzania we have more than 120 ethnic groups, and they have different perceptions on how they regard girls and boys. So they don't want to educate girls in schools, but they send boys to schools so that they know that they are heads of the family. They are going to head their families, but the girls are there for investment. So this, of course, there is a lot of government initiatives to stop these perceptions and take the girls to schools. Government have doing a lot of things, providing resources, and also they waive some of the education system in Tanzania now. You pay a very little money to take the children to schools. But still, if there is no individual effort to take this, to pursue this science subject, it ends up with nothing. So we need an individual effort, but also at the family levels, we as the parents, and especially the senior workers, they have to show a way so that even the juniors, when they come to the museum and even to other working places, so that they can follow the same path. You know, we have some common issue. For example, in our family, we have some common issues. My children are also taking science. My husband also taking science. So when we speak, we are speaking the same language. Yeah, but when we go to the working environment, we cannot find this. So it needs an individual effort so that we can pursue this.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Our time is running out, but I would like us to move into the issue of leadership, because I believe visibility, as we've mentioned, is very powerful, because that's where you get your mentorship, and there are people who you look up to and you even call them their mentors without them being aware that they are inspiring you. What characteristics do you think, and now I would like Anne to speak and I would like Felicita to speak, what characteristics do you think we need to be able to move into positions of leadership, general leadership, but more so as women in STEM? Just very briefly.
I've been incredibly fortunate to have many amazing women mentor me maybe they've known it, maybe they haven't. But even this morning, I received some mentorship before getting on this stage. So it happens in many different ways, and I think having that little bit of extra emotional support during a day that's not going well, sometimes that's all you need.
So Felicita, qualities to get women into leadership.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think the most important thing is you need to be very proactive and take up the initiatives. Personally, at this particular moment, I have a startup foundation to empower young women and girls, and especially in the rural areas, because that is where we have a very, very big gap of women, our girls not even proceeding to high schools because of the issues that all of us know, especially in the rural areas. So it's about stepping up and taking actions to work on the issues that we are seeing, not just theoretically, but just from what we've discussed here. We move out of here and go to the communities, to our institutions, and change some of the policies, and also provide an inclusive environment where women and even our girls can speak up and can have that confidence to make decisions and make sure that they implement what they really want to see. Yeah.
Yes, for me, very briefly, I think one of the issues that we constantly deal with, and it's part of our nature as women, we tend to be perfectionists. So we want to be perfect. There's a job that is being advertised, and you find women are not applying because they run through the requirements and they feel there's one tiny bit that they've not achieved. But you find that all the men are applying. For example, we advertise a position for lecturer, say lecturer in physiology. And you find men who are still doing their masters, and we need somebody who is a PhD holder, and somebody who is still doing their masters are applying. Because they have nothing to lose. But you will hardly find a woman do that. So sometimes we hold back too much, and I keep telling women, just step out. Because you need to step out, you need to apply for those jobs, you need to go for those interviews, because that's how you learn, that's how you grow your network, but there's still a lot of holding back that we do. So just very quickly before the moderator finishes the stairs, final comments from one of you. Anyone who feels like giving a final comment? Yes, Foshibe, I think you're the rightly placed, because a lot of the ages that I see here will relate to you.
All right, I think my final comment here, it's what you've just mentioned. Most women hold back a lot, and I am one of them. I see a job advertisement and there's just one clause and I'm like, no, I don't fit in. I don't have this, or I don't have that, and I don't have this. But then you find people, my colleagues, from different fields are applying to my own field, and I find myself, staying back. So there is need to, believe in oneself. I think for me personally, that's one thing I really strive for, to wholly believe in myself, wholly believe that I can do it, and kind of put myself out there. And for any young woman in here, I think what I would say is it's okay. It's okay to have a dream, and you can eat your cake and have it. Like Prof said, she's done it before, and so we can do it. And there is need for women to women mentorship and support. And I think that will go a long way, to having more girls or more women think that they can also do it and also come into the STEM field. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please give another round of applause to the panelists as we step out. So thank you.
Wow. I think you have had it all, and I'm really excited to see that our ladies are doing very well out there. And I would encourage them to support the young ones coming up. And the young ones in this room, I'm sure they have benefited a lot, and now they are very brave. They can make it in life. the way these ladies have talked about, and in life in science. Can we give them again another clap? Yes, now we move to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Jared Bosire. He's a marine scientist from UNEP, and he's going to talk about a sustainable blue economy for national development. Bosire has 20 years of experience, and he focuses on environmental sustainability in various sectors, ranging from wildlife, fresh water, energy, climate change, forestry, coastal and marine ecosystems. So you can see he has a lot of, he has done a lot in research. This diverse experience encompasses governmental, non-governmental, and intergovernmental organizations. He has offered senior leadership in organizational development and transformation in both government and non-governmental organizations. He currently works at the United Nations Environmental Program supporting ocean governance, work across 10 countries of the Eastern African region. He is an elder at Lavington Seventh-day Adventist Church in Nairobi, and has a strong passion for men mentorship. I think that one is a bit discriminative. I think you should be safe for everybody. Mentorship, which has seen the funding of men mentorship program at Lavington SDA Church, from which about 150 men have graduated and have been empowered. So, Professor or Dr. Bosire, can we clap for
Good morning, everyone. The last bit of my introduction, I rarely use it in, in professional circles, but it's to indicate that we have a life out of our offices and out of boardrooms for meetings, social life, societal life as well, that we lead. As the presentation is coming up, I have appreciated the talk that the ladies have had this morning, ladies in STEM, well moderated. I come from the marine science space, where I worked for quite a long while. But since then I've transitioned. I used to be a mangrove scientist for a long while, did quite some work with many colleagues in the country, in the region, and across even the continent as well. But now I manage many things beyond mangroves, working more at a policy level, management, working with governments, but also supporting science, but in terms of strengthening the interface between science and policy, which normally tends to be a major gap. Now, if I digress a bit from my presentation, and I'll go there shortly for just 2 minutes. The discussion that has been here this morning has been very, very insightful. In marine science, in the Eastern African region, which we call the Western Indian Ocean region, we have what is called Women in Marine Science. It's a very powerful network. You can go online and check out Women in Marine Science in the Western Indian Ocean region. And I will tell you that in the marine science space in the region now, you are actually having more women than men. I think the next panel we will have will be a panel of men asking men, where are you? Now, and this is very serious, by the way. The ladies are doing excellent research work, taking up leadership the premier scientific organization in the region, Marine Science, we call it the Western Indian Ocean Marine Science Association. The last 3 presidents for this association have been women, and they are voted, okay? And I think women find it easier to seek for help, to seek for mentorship than men. I think in my life, I should actually say that I have mentored more women than men, because men don't like asking for help. They think they know. Even when they know they don't know, they are still struggling on their own, but ladies find it easier to reach out. Just last week, we organized for a senior leadership, the last question from the panel here, we organized for a senior leadership training, men and women from all these countries that my work covers. And at the end, when we were doing an award ceremony, there were 3 categories of identifying the most impactful leaders, the kind of person you want in the team. For 2 categories, it is ladies who led, okay? Then I should say humbly that I led in 1 category, most impactful leader, but then I ceded my award, and the second person was actually a lady. So it's only the ladies who got the awards. So ladies are doing very well. Keep on. Men, we are getting challenged. I want to thank the organizers for inviting me. I think I am blocked by this one. I can move it. I want to thank the organizers for the conference for inviting me to share what is a little outside entomology, but still important in as far as insects are concerned as well. I want to thank Dr. Esther Kioko. I've known Daktari for a while. We actually met the first time in mangroves when I was active in marine science, because we were sharing a PhD student. And because I think she's very motherly, she was patient to supervise this student for almost 10 years. Somewhere along the way, I got busy and I said the student is taking too long, and I left the responsibility to her. I used to be in Mombasa. When I came to Nairobi, you move into a court. Then I realized that Esther and the family are actually our next door neighbors. So thank you for having me here. I am going to present on sustainable blue economy for national development. I don't have a pointer here to move the slides. Can we go to the next slide? Just a very brief background of what UNEP Nairobi Convention is. Under UNEP, we have a number of regional seas programs that cover different oceans of the world. And for the Eastern Africa region, what we have is the Nairobi Convention that covers 10 countries. As you will see them indicated there, all the way from Somalia up to South Africa and the adjacent island states. And what we do is that we provide a legal platform that brings together governments, civil society, private sector, to work towards the sustainable management of coastal and marine resources in the region. Next. I thought I should show you this graph. Africa is changing. Next, please. If I could have had something to move the slide here, I could have managed. But now, go back 1 step. This is The Economist. 2011, you will see there 2013, that Africa is rising in terms of the potential economic opportunities that the continent is experiencing. Next. If you look around the coastline in the continent, next please. If you look around the coastline in the continent, there are so many huge infrastructural developments. Can we please move the slide? If you look at, this is not meant for your reading, but it's just to show you that we have huge development corridors along coastlines in the continent. If you are in Kenya, you will see LAPSSET there. If you go to Tanzania, you will see. So all these huge developments are meant to bring economic prosperity into the region, but they also have an impact on the environment as well, because they're either ports, they're, okay. Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Yeah, so all these huge developments are meant to bring economic prosperity, to the countries, but they also have a huge footprint on the environment as well. And what is driving these huge developments? These huge financial inflows, from external sources, through various funding streams, either as ODA, that is overseas development assistance, or foreign direct investments, or remittances, playing a very, very important role. Now, if we go back to the coastal and marine environment, very rich in terms of natural resources, whether it is from mangrove ecosystems on your top left here, seagrass ecosystems, coral reefs, but also for tourism and fisheries. So very, very important for national development. Now, there are also traditional and non-traditional industries. There are a lot of prospects for oil and gas. There has been bioprospecting going on in Kenya, but it has been stopped for now. But there are a lot of discussions on seabed mining as well. But from the ocean, there's a lot of potential for green energy and the ports and shipping. So the ocean is a major, major, major driver in national development. You don't have to read all the details here, but just to illustrate that an economic assessment was done a couple of years ago, just about 5 or so years ago, and the total economy of the coastal and marine resources in the Western Indian Ocean was found to be worth almost $330 billion, very significant from different sectors. And if the economy of the ocean is considered as a national economy, what we call the gross marine product, the annual economy of the region was found to be about $20 trillion per year. And if you take the ocean economy, to be considered as a national economy, the ocean economy for the region was found to be the 4th biggest economy after South Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, and of course the other countries. So underscoring the fact that the ocean plays a very, very important role in national development. Actually, that should be the next frontier for national development. Okay. Now, if you look at Kenya, and I will go through this very quickly, there are a number of sectors that are very, very important in terms of their economic contribution. As you see, tourism plays a very important role, but from an environmental conservation perspective, carbon sequestration, the coastal and marine ecosystem are able to absorb a lot of carbon from the atmosphere, okay, what we call blue carbon, and therefore play a very important role in climate change moderation. For those of you who work in this space, you know that currently the country is actually selling carbon credits in the international market using a small-scale project of 100 hectares, Mikoko Pamoja, for those of you who have related with it. But we are currently giving support to the Kenyan government to increase Mikoko Pamoja up north in Lamu from 100 hectares to about 3,000 hectares, which is likely to bring about $200,000 to the community for conservation and development per year through the sale of carbon credits. But these ecosystems face a number of threats, as you will see here, biodiversity loss, illegal fishing, overfishing. Pollution is a major issue, especially from land-based sources and activities, climate change, but governance is an important challenge as well. And these new economic opportunities, though important, but they pose such a serious challenge to the coastal and marine resources. Okay, now, I wanted to show you that this graph, there's a lot of data behind this graph that is plotted here. This is from the Living Planet report, indicating that up to around 2016 or so, we had lost about 68% of marine biodiversity globally because of the threats that I've mentioned before. And I will show you shortly that the graph is actually still going down. And this is because, of challenges around overfishing, pollution, coastal development, among others that have impacted entire oceans globally, from shallow waters to the deep ocean. And if you have been following mass extinctions globally, which we have had over the last couple of years, I think the last mass extinction we were reading about was around 2018, 19, 20, where we are losing a lot of species because of these huge environmental challenges. And someone may ask, this conference is focusing on insects, so the greater focus is on land. But I want to challenge you that there's a very huge interaction between land-based processes and marine-based processes. Forestry management programs on land land use in terms of agriculture, urban development, pollution, river flows, including the processes that are moderated by insect populations here, they actually have a huge impact on the marine environment. And therefore the need to integrate land and sea planning. We are currently supporting the Kenyan government to develop integrated land sea planning guidelines on how this interface here, land and sea, can be planned together instead of planning for the land separately and for the sea separately, and yet the two domains are very interrelated in terms of their processes. This is just one photo, again, showing about the interaction between land and sea, but I'm going through it quickly. This is the graph that I was talking about of biodiversity loss. As you will see, there's a very steady decline of biodiversity globally. I showed this before, and the statistics don't look very impressive, okay? Up to 2030, where will we be with this continued loss of global biodiversity? And therefore, what do we need to do to bend the curve on biodiversity loss? And I guess bending the curve on biodiversity loss is relevant even for the conservation of insects, you know, as a major component of biodiversity. Now, okay, there we are, that we need to bend the curve on biodiversity loss, but it is easier to lose biodiversity than to actually return it or conserve it sustainably. And this will require very, very concerted efforts, which I'm highlighting here shortly. I think the slide is a bit slow in terms of movement. So we will require a lot of very ambitious interventions to actually bend the curve on biodiversity loss. One of those, which was discussed here yesterday under the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Protocol, is to protect 30% of land and sea, very, very ambitious, okay? Eliminating poaching, that is a major challenge, reducing deforestation by half, keeping major rivers flowing, doubling sustainable fisheries, okay? Reducing food impacts, because food production has a huge impact on the environment, and also reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 50%. These are very ambitious interventions. And the challenge is then, are we working at a scale that matters, that can actually bend the curve? And that is what I want to pose as a challenge to all of us who are here in this room. Okay, so there's need to invest in science that informs policy, and I will talk about that, because in the region we have established a science to policy platform that brings together technical experts, scientists like the men in this room, there were more yesterday, and how they provide science that informs policy and management decision making. We do this every year. We had a very successful science to policy meeting last year in Maputo, where you invite experts, they present on science and how this science informs policy, and the policymakers are in the room and they discuss in terms of what do they need as appropriate science. And the policy recommendations from this meeting will be presented in a meeting of ministers of environment later on this year, actually in about 2 months from now. And there is, I will challenge technical colleagues who are here, scientists, because I've worked in that space. Our science becomes meaningful to the extent that we are able to influence policy, okay? And we should take that as our call. That is what our primary business should be, as we do the basic and applied science, but informing policy and management is important. And to do effective science will require that we have partnerships, you know, partnerships between like-minded organizations, partnership between science and policy, partnerships with civil society and even communities. I would normally say that if you want to be impactful, you have to work with partnerships, you know, within your space. You can only do so much as an individual, as an organization, but when you establish strategic partnerships, you make even greater impact. We currently have the UN Decade of Ocean Science that is coordinated by the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO from 2021 up to 2030. And the women and the scientists in general have a great opportunity to influence science for sustainable ocean management. And the aspirations of the decade include the need to have a clean ocean, a healthy and resilient ocean, a predictable ocean in terms of data for predictions, a safe ocean, a sustainable and productive ocean, a transparent and accessible ocean in terms of accessing data, but lastly, an inspiring and emerging ocean. So these are the aspirations for the Ocean Decade. Do people in this room have a role to play? Yes, because I have said that there's a strong linkage between upstream and the downstream processes. We just had a very big oceans conference in Barcelona in April to look at the progress that has been made under this. I'll be coming to the end of my presentation. So what should blue economy be? Blue economy is not for the oceans, it is for inland waters as well. When you look at the World Bank definition of blue economy, it deals with the oceans. But when you look at the Africa Union definition, it includes inland waters. So it is about using smart technology, it's about being inclusive, it's about sustainable food production to create jobs, but it's also about conserving marine life and the ocean in general. These are the aspirations of what we call a sustainable blue economy. I don't want to go a lot through this. I've talked about the Ocean Decade and its transformative agenda. For instance, if you look at where we are in terms of our science tends to be diagnostic, identify the problems and it ends there. But science must not just identify the problems, but it must provide the solutions as well, among other transformational agenda during the Ocean Decade. Sustainable financing is critical. I remember that was mentioned here yesterday, that you see people, faces looking good, but the pockets aren't as good. There are sustainable financing, innovative financing options that can be explored. In my previous professional life, we worked with private sector and a number of partners here in the country to develop a green bond program for Kenya, which is actually trading in the stock exchange. Seychelles has developed a blue bond that they're using to mobilize resources. This is just an example of the many financing initiatives or innovations that actually could be explored to mobilize resources to support science and therefore support our sustainability. I think I have only 2 slides to go. Kenya has been a champion in sustainable blue economy. Some of you may, if you attended in 2018, Kenya hosted the first ever Sustainable Blue Economy Conference here in Nairobi. And I liked one of the statements that the former president made. He said, I pledge to adopt appropriate policies, strategies, and the mechanisms to harness the blue economy, confront head-on, I love this ambition, the challenge of waste management and plastic pollution, and ensure responsible and sustainable fishing, and ensure safety and security in the high seas. Kenya has remained a champion. Kenya sits in the high-level panel on oceans, okay, and Kenya playing an important role, but it is what those roles mean on the ground in terms of impacting lives and creating jobs. So this is my last slide. There are very important global opportunities that the country can take advantage of. Some were discussed here yesterday. The Global Biodiversity Protocol, very significant. If the targets are implemented on the ground, achieved to whatever extent, they will bring sustainability. Agenda 2030 on SDGs, especially 14.5, that talks about life underwater. Agenda 2063 of the Africa Union, which focuses on the Africa that we want. The decade of ocean science that I've talked about. There is the UN decade of ecosystem restoration, so supporting, restoration of marine ecosystems. Adelaide talked about working on mangrove restoration before. I did a lot of work on mangrove ecosystem functioning, restoration ecology, etc. The Africa Integrated Maritime Strategy 2050 provides a continental opportunity. The Paris 2015 agreement, especially the nationally determined contributions. Many countries have now included oceans in their second generation of national determined contributions. I know Kenya has, and therefore the role that oceans play in the climate change space. And we also have other processes going on. The Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee that is working on a legally binding treaty on how to combat plastics that is a major source of pollution. One other very important global treaty that I forgot that was finalized about a year ago is the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction High Seas Treaty, where governments need to work together and be able to harness benefits from the high seas. And Kenya will not be able to do this alone. The country doesn't have the capacity, but through regional collaboration with other governments, the country can be able to harness benefits that are beyond its national jurisdiction. Colleagues, thank you very much, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Once again, can we give a clap to Dr. Bosire? Dr. Bosire is very good in keeping time. Exactly, in fact, I have 2 minutes for you. There might be a lot of questions, burning questions people want to ask, but I will tell you that you can keep these questions. Then after my session, probably I can allocate you 10 minutes to ask questions, both for, from the discussion that the ladies had, and of course, this panel. The next speaker was supposed to be Ivan Rwamushana, that's Kabi Nairobi, who was to talk about CABs in digital tools for biosecurity and plant health. Unfortunately, is not in, and there's a lady called Monica Kansime. Is it Kansime or Kasim? Monica Kansime. She's the Deputy Director, Development and Outreach. That's CABI. She's going to talk about agricultural economist. I mean, she's an agricultural economist and a senior scientist. Currently, a global team leader of CABI, a plant-wise plus program focusing on business models for, anyway, I can't read that one. And she's all going to talk about women, men, and youth in agro-business. So let's welcome Dr. Monica. Can you give her a clap? Thank you. Yes. Is it? Yeah, yeah. So she's going to talk about, in fact, what she's going to talk is about the same thing what Ivan was supposed to talk. So, karibu.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, moderator. I'll represent my colleague, Ivan. He got an emergency and requested me to step in. Luckily, as the previous speaker mentioned, we don't do things alone. We work in partnership. And I felt I had the strength to represent Ivan. Kindly show the slides. Okay, as we wait for the technology, I can just talk about CABI. CABI is an intergovernmental organization. We work with partners to generate and disseminate science and knowledge to solve problems in agriculture and the environment. And some of the problems actually relate to the marine world that the previous speakers talked about. So you'll see that as I present some of the tools, we have some of the Compedia and knowledge around fisheries and marine science, and then also the plant, the land, and the biodiversity in general. So why CABI digital tools? As scientists and development practitioners, we generated a lot of knowledge. But our biggest challenge has always been, how do we get that knowledge to scale? How do we get the users, or the intended users, to get that knowledge at their hands, to make the decisions that they need to make? Be it farmers, extension workers, advisors, researchers, or policy. They need this knowledge packaged in the best way format so that it informs their decisions within their farming systems and other systems. So we have, okay, I'm not sure if, I have to point it to the, to the technology gentleman. So we have quite a lot of tools. I'll just go through a few of them for you to see what they actually do or help. If I can start with the Horizon scanning tool. This tool helps us to identify problems in the horizon, just as it says. And mostly it's around how do we identify and know the likelihood of invasion. So we look at the invasive pests, the invasive species, where they are located, and the likelihood that they can invade us. So here it helps us to identify pests that are in the neighboring countries that we work with, and this informs the surveillance, but also informs the pest risk analysis around those pests. Not all pests are necessarily that important economically and to our farming systems. So after we have identified in the horizon what exists, then we go to the next step, which is the pest risk analysis. And this one is understanding what is the impact of this pest if it actually got into the country. And of course, we look at an analysis of multiple risks associated with the particular pest. And the analysis can be by pathway or by pest, or at least for maybe a live import. And here what I mean is, for example, if Kenya needs to import, let's say rice from somewhere, we may want to do a pest risk analysis, looking at pest as rice as a crop. What are the likely risks associated with importing rice into the country? Or we could say, what are the likely risks associated with a particular consignment that is coming to a country? So that is what we are calling pest risk analysis. And we do this for a country, but recently we are trying to encourage more work around regional pest risk analysis, because most of the challenges we are facing are transboundary and cross-border risks. And with increasing trade, it gets more complicated. So it is important that the regional blocks come together and try to analyze what are the risks within the region and how can they implement containment or management measures. Then the CABI Compendium, I mentioned it briefly. There are quite a series of these compendia. It is knowledge, like how you can say Wikipedia, but with scientific knowledge around various things that we work on. But this particular one on crop protection is looking at pests, and has about 11,000 pests which are included in the compendium. And we also have a subset of the crop protection, which looks at invasive species. And most of these, as you will be informed later, they are open access for scientists and researchers and students. Then the Plantwise Knowledge Bank is also a free online resource that gathers plant health information from across the world. We have over 15,000 pieces of content in that knowledge bank. And again, practitioners and researchers can access that information and be able to use it. The beauty with this particular resource, currently it is in 100+ languages, and it also provides country-specific resources. So I can actually go and say, I want information about snap beans in Kenya, and then I'll get all that information. All I will say, I need something really country-specific information about some of these data. Then the fact sheet library, this is more of a kind of an advisory app for especially farmers and their advisors. And it is available on Android. It is downloadable. The content can be used offline. And you can browse by crop and problem, and you can also find problem-specific information and country-specific information about certain crops and certain pests and how to manage them. The crop sprayer app is probably the most recent addition. This one is really about helping farmers and their advisors on how to use pesticides, how to measure, how to calibrate, and what quantities they can use. Because most times when the farmer goes to the agrovet, they will just say, take this, and the label will tell you put 20 mils in one knapsack sprayer of maybe 20 liters. But the question is how far or how wide can one knapsack sprayer cover? Is it 1 acre? Is it half an acre? So part of what this app does is once you input the kind of information of what you want to do, then it is able to calibrate for you and tell you how much and what acreage of land you need to cover. Then the Kabi Bioprotection Portal, this is one of our linkages for industry and practice, whereby the users of bioprotection products are able to find them by going on the portal and find who is supplying what and where. So this portal has quite so many industry actors, suppliers and producers, and their locations and the list of products that are recommended for different types of crops. And we are always very careful to ensure that what is included in the portal is what is nationally registered and recognized. So if you go to the PCPB list of what is the recognized and registered bioproducts for use in Kenya, that's what you'll find there. But the addition here is we will tell you where to get it and how to use it and for which crops. Then the fertilizer optimization tool is for helping farmers to optimize their allocation of fertilizer in their fields based on the resource endowment, because sometimes farmers don't have all the resources that they need, but this tool helps them to allocate to the most effective use of that fertilizer. So if you have a combination of groundnuts, maize, and maybe beans, it could tell you that allocate your small fertilizer on beans as opposed to spreading it across the whole field, because this is the most profitable given the circumstances. It looks at the markets, it looks at the available costs, the current costs, but it also looks at what other amendments or what other crops have been in that field, and then calculates where you need to mostly invest. The Kabi Academy for young people here, probably, and practitioners here, it's fully open access for Kenya. And there are quite a number of modules that you can learn. It is offered in partnership with a renowned university in Switzerland. We give a certificate, and the experiences we have had is that when people present this certificate, it is appreciated. So kindly, if you want to upskill and enhance some of your knowledge around pest diagnosis, around recommendations, around how to use bioprotection products, Kabi Academy is one area that you can go to and upskill. Then pest diagnostic simulator. Again, this shows how to investigate and diagnose common plant health problems. It uses a 3D simulation scenario, and then it can give you possible problems and a solution around that problem. Similar to crop management simulator, but this one looks at the entire field and provides crop management options. The other one is for pest, and this for just general crop management. The crop up index. We sat and said, okay, now these are too many, and we are not the only ones doing things. So what else exists? So the crop up index is now your one-stop shop to go and search if anything else exists beyond what I have shared, or if you have any other need. So it's also it helps to support decision making for the different users. And it has quite a series of benefits as indicated there, and currently in about 5-6 languages. So in summary, all these things I've mentioned, you can find most of them in the PlantWise Plus toolkit. When you go to our website, you just put in PlantWise Plus toolkit, and you'll find all those tools that you can be able to download and use accordingly, or you send a feedback to us and we'll be able to help or address a query. And finally, for probably the researchers, mostly now in the room, the Kabi Digital